Podcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to our webinar today. My name is Tanya, and I'm the marketing manager over here at Trusses Solutions, which is now part of the Great Tech Group. So just for those of you who are new with us today, our STAR solution MWF, which stands for Metal Wood Framer, is our Revit-based BIM framing solution that allows users to automate Revit walls, floors, ceilings, and trusses in like-gauge steel and also in wood. So today, however, our technician Pernaz will be walking you through how to generate trusses using the line-based command in MWF. So this includes how to use a line-based command, how to use auto truss connection, and also how to design trusses. So just before we get going, I'd like to remind everyone that at the end of the webinar, we'll be taking a couple of live questions. In order to be selected, please press the raise hand button on the dashboard. Just please also make sure that your mic is working correctly. If you'd prefer, you can ask questions throughout the webinar by typing into the questions tab of the GoToWebinar dashboard as well. All right, that's it for me. I'm going to hand off to Pernaz now.
Thank you, Tanya. Good morning, everyone. So today, as Tanya mentioned, we are going to talk about how to generate envelopes using line-based commands. And then we will try to add auto truss connections. And then we will try to generate trusses and create a few presets in our model. So let's start with the model. Me personally, I prefer to work in the 3D view when it comes to trusses. And I always try to add transparency to the roof. In the line-based command, it's just like the other commands for generating envelopes. We just need to introduce a few references, but the references are different. So we can draw a few lines in the model and use those lines as the references. The other good thing about line-based command is that at any point you can just close it. You can go back to your model, make any changes that you need. And when you come back, all the references that you have added are saved here, and you don't need to add those references again. So let's start with the line-based command. The first thing that we need to introduce is the roof. So we just need to select the roof. The second one is the supports. So I will just select the walls. For the supports, we always need to make sure that the structural layer for the wall is active. So if I close here, I can select the walls that I have. And in edit type, edit, we just need to make sure that the structural material is checked off. Now we can go back to the line-based command and the references are saved here. The next thing is the ceiling. It's optional. I don't have a ceiling in the model, so I'm not going to add the ceilings, but if you have, you can just click on ceilings, select the ceiling in your model and add it here. The next one is the exterior lines. I don't have it in the model, so I can just close. And in the top view, I need to type in LI, and in the line styles, I will select exterior lines. Me personally, I prefer to create different line styles when it comes to line-based commands, so I can select them and group them more easily. For the exterior lines, we can just try to start with the rectangle and draw a rectangle around the exterior side of the supports. We can mask select the model and just check none, and we can select the exterior lines. I will type in HI to isolate the lines and select them again to make the group. This was the exterior lines, 0, 2. Okay. And HR again, back to the model. Let's go back to the line-based command. And now for the model lines, I just need to select the group. I try to hover the mouse, check that I'm selecting the correct group, and that's it. Finish, and 4 lines have been added here. The next one is TCOH lines, which stands for top chord overhang. Let's close here and try drawing. I will type in LI again. And in the line styles, let's select TCOH. When we try to generate trusses with, let me escape here, with the truss profiles, one thing that happens sometimes is for the ridge trusses. As they are extended to the edge of the roof, they might stick out of the roof, and we don't want this to happen. Something that we can do with the line-based commands is when we are drawing the TCOH line, we can add like a 2-inch offset from the edge of the roof. It's more based on the families that you're using in your trusses. You can add an offset of 2 inch of, you can add 2 inches of offset from the edge of the roof, and then you can draw the TCOH lines. So this won't happen when you're generating trusses with the line-based command. LI again and TCOH. So I will try starting from here to the next point, and let's close it. Again, let's mass select everything, check none, and just TCOH. HI to isolate them and make sure that we have selected the correct lines, and TCOH 02. Okay, HR back to the model. In the line-based command, we can select the model group. When we hover the mouse, we can check the name for the group and finish. 4 lines have been selected. The next is negative areas, where we want to, like we have a chimney in the roof and we don't want any trusses to get generated at that point. We can just draw a rectangle and we can add it as a negative area, and no trusses will get generated there. The last one is truss lines. Let's close it here and draw the truss lines. I will type in LI and the truss lines. And we can copy the group. In the line-based command, we can manually check the spacing. We don't have to have same spacing everywhere, and it is in general easier to manipulate the lines. Okay, this is not good, so let me copy it again. And let's add another hip truss here. And now we need to draw 2 ridges. Let's check if it's aligned. Yes, good on both sides, and the jack trusses. You can also draw the lines for one side of the roof, and you just need to mirror it for the other side. You can group them first and then mirror it, so you don't have to group them separately. Later, I will explain that. For the walls and floors, we have the templates, but for trusses, we have the presets. So the other thing that you can do is you can group the lines that you want to have the same presets, and then you can generate those trusses at the same time. So now that we have the lines for the truss lines, let's mass select them, check none, and check off the option for truss lines and OK. HI to isolate them and make sure that we have selected all and group. So it's truss lines 02. Okay. HR back to the model. All is good. We can go back to the line-based command and add the truss lines. Finish. The next thing, we need to add default ceiling plane height for the supports. We can set it to the lowest support, or we can, if we need different height for the supports, we can just edit them here. Like the other commands for truss profiles, we can add offset from outer face. If you need a gap between the outer face of the roof and the envelopes, we can add the offset here. Now it's set to 2 inches. The next one is the default truss width. Based on the families that you are using in your model, if there are 400s or 600s, you can add the truss widths here. So now it's set to 400s because most of the families that I'm having in the project are 400s. And we also have the option for the debug lines. The debug lines, if you want to check how the trusses are going to get generated in the roof, you can check off this option and you will have 2 parallel envelopes in your model. So you will have the shape of the truss in your model. But for me personally, if the roof is not that complicated, I prefer to use the debug lines, not for all the lines that I have in my project, just for a few that I'm not sure about them. So I will show you the debug lines later for the other side of the roof. At this point, we can just say generate envelopes, and we will have the envelopes in our model. We had 18 truss lines, and we will have 18 envelopes. Let's close out of here. And here are the envelopes. The next step at this point would be adding auto truss connection. Why do we need to add auto truss connections? When we engineer the trusses, we are actually calculating the loads for this. We are actually calculating the loads for the trusses. One of the loads that we have for each trusses are the load from the supported truss and the supporting truss. When we add the auto truss connection, in the truss designer, we are actually adding the information of the supported truss for the supporting truss and vice versa. So let me select these in here and type in HI. I always try to isolate them so I won't misselect any trusses. Now I can select these envelopes and just say auto truss connection. For the lateral tolerance, I can change it to 2 inches, and the elevation tolerance is set to 6 inches. Let's hit OK. 2 truss connections were added. OK, and we will get a dialog box mentioning that dialog message that these connections has been validated. As you can see, diameter for the cylinder is 2 inches and the height is 6 inches. Let's type in HR back to the model and select the other group. HI again, just to make sure that we have selected the right envelopes. You can select them and add auto truss connection. 2 inches and OK. Again, we will get that message that this connection has been validated, and we can go, yes, validated connections, OK, and back to the model. Let's just do that for these 3 as well. HI. So here we are having the ridge, the jack, and the hip. Let's select them all and add auto truss connections. The important thing about adding auto truss connections and then designing these trusses is that we need to start from the smallest envelope, from the supported envelope to the supporting envelope. So in this case, when we need to start designing, we need to start with the jacks. And then we can design the wedge, then the other jack, then the other jacks and wedges from the other side of the roof. And the last step would be designing the hip, because we need all these informations for the hip to get designed. Now that we have added all these truss connections, let's select one of the jacks and click on Create. As I mentioned, for the walls and the floors, we have the templates, but for trusses, we have presets. You don't need to add the information for the presets every time. You can just, you have two options. You can go to presets, create different presets, and then use them in here, or you can select the envelope that you are going to design and click on Create. In both ways, you can save as the settings that you are creating. So for the truss type, in the first tab of the presets, in the General tab, we can select the truss type. You can have a back-to-back truss or a wall truss or in-plane extended trusses. You also can select the truss category, the display units. The display units for trusses are a bit different from walls and floors. So we have three numbers. The first one is foot, the second one is inch, and the last one is 1/16 of an inch. You have the option for engineering only. If you are having advanced metal and you want to design the truss, you want to analyze it, you need to check off the option for engineering only, and it will filter out the families that can be used in the design in engineering. The next tab is webbing. You have the settings for diagonals orientations. It is set to intention for default. The next one is verticals position. It's set to equal intersection as the default, but you also have the options for fixed widths or diagonals only. You can check off the option for verticals at pitch break, verticals on supports, verticals at point loads. You can change the top and bottom maximum spacing for the webbings, or you can also add the offset for the left and right heel offset. The third tab is member sizes. For the member sizes, you can have different catalogs. Right now, I am having S and T. If I can close it here, and let's also insert more catalogs. I need to go to MWF folder and then to the truss folder. MWF trusses, families, profiles, imperial, and for example, we can select cap truss. I just need to select all these and add them to my project. Now we can go back to MWF Advanced Metals and in presets. For member sizes, now if I open the drop-down menu for available catalogs, I also have cap trusses, BMSF, SSMA, cap truss. Let's select a cap truss catalog for the top chord. What we are having here is not all the families that we have in our project. It is actually the pick list that you are creating for the design portion. When you are running the design, each member will get selected and we calculate loads on the member. If it passes, if it's the correct family, it will keep that family. If not, it will move on to the next families on the pick list. So right now for the top chord, the pick list would be these. For the next one, for the bottom chord, it's just 400s. At any point, if we need to add more families, we can just click on add. And for example, let's add 550, S16268, and also 600, S16268, and close. That family has been added here. For the webbing and heels, we also have the option to add half bracing and 1/3 bracing. So if in order to double check, we can check the families for the pick list for each member type. Let's go to physical members. Here also you can add the settings for the top and bottom track insertion widths, or the chord pitch break if you need it open or lapped, chord and cut if you need it in or out, for the webbing if you need extra length if it's not square, or extra spacing between the webs. The next tab is designer preferences. You can change the settings for the UI in the TD, the Truss Designer page, and engineering. In the engineering setting, you need to add all these informations based on your project and the location of the project. I added the spacing for the envelopes to 2 feet, but this won't change automatically. You need to come back here and change the spacing. Now the default was 2 feet, so I don't need to change it, but if you have different spacings, you need to change it here as well. You can select if it's a roof or the floor. You can also add top chord live, bottom chord live, pound per square feet, top chord live roof, top chord dead. All these informations here. You can also select top chord spacing type if it's a purlin or sheeted. You can also add the spacing between the top chord purlin spacing. And you can also check off the option for the attic live load. If you check this option off, you will have the information for this load in your reports later on. In the first tab, for other load settings, in the general tab, you can select the building code that you are using. We have AISI 2016, ASD, LRFD, ASD or LRFD. You can select between these two. For the table rules, you can select the top chord if it's separate or whole. Same thing for bottom chord. You can check off the items to calculate CSI maximum value. You can change the CSI limit, and also you can select the screw category that you are going to use. The second tab is deflection. For the deflection settings, you can select between roof and the floor, and you can add the live load, snow or wind load, or the total load of the roof. The next one is for wind. The code that we use for the wind and snow is ASCE 710. Based on the location of your project, you can add all these informations here: the building length, building width, the main roof height, same thing for the snow. Again, the code that we use is ASCE 710. And in other, you can also add the settings for the wind drag and the seismic drag if you are having. And the last one is the combinations. You can have all the load combinations here. You can unselect the ones that you don't want to use. The first two, you cannot unselect them, but for the rest, you can just select or unselect them here. Let's hit OK, and the last tab is the reports. You can have fabrication, engineering, and detailed engineering reports. And you can also add the company information in the reports tab. Let's just save as the presets that we created as the demo. It is asking if we are going to overwrite it, and let's hit OK and X out of here. Now I just need to select the envelope that I have in the model and click on Create. From the presets, I can select the presets that I have in the model. It is set to demo. We don't need to change anything here. The only thing that is different from the presets is that you have the options to check off the interactive. If you check this off, it means that when you hit OK, the next window that is going to pop up is the Truss Designer one. If you uncheck this, it means that the truss will get generated right away. The second one is Web on Launch. If you check this option off, you will have the webbings in the Truss Designer page. And the last one is Replicate Identical. When you select this option, it means that all the envelopes that are similar, that are the same in your model, would get generated at one point. Let's hit OK and move to the Truss Designer page. At this point, you can see the supports. We have added the auto truss connections, so the supports are showing up here, and the envelopes. We have different views for the envelopes, the model lines, physical model, analysis view with the supports and the pins, and physical and analysis. Here, at this point, let's go back to the model line view. You have the option to manually edit this envelope, but what we can do is just hit the design. As I mentioned before, when we run the design, it will select each member of this truss. It will check and calculate with the family that we have in the pick list. If it's the correct family, it will keep it for that member. If not, it will move on to the pick list and select the best family from the pick list. If we double click, we can check which family has been selected for this member. The analysis passed, the first family for the top chord. Let's check the hills, the first family for the hills, and the second family for the bottom chord. We can also check the diagrams. If I zoom in a bit, we can check off the option to show details. When we click on each point, we can have the information of that point, the member type, if it's a wall truss or back-to-back truss, if it has the purlin or it's sheeted, the section that has been selected, and all the loads. And for the diagrams, we can have the moment diagrams, deflection, shear, axial, and CSI. If we check the option for envelopes, we will have the envelopes for each diagram, but we won't have the points. Let's close here and just hit on reports. So we have selected fabrication, engineering, and detailed engineering reports. The fabrication report, if I zoom in a bit, we will have the materials and also the material design pass, the number of screws that has been used for this truss, total screw count, truss dimensions. The next one for the engineering. If I zoom in a bit, okay. The summary for the reaction tables, materials, and member forces summary. And the last one is detailed engineering. You have all the information in detail in the detailed engineering report. Maximum CSI summary, all the reaction tables, and the load summary. We checked off the option to have the attic, so we are having the information for the attic here in the reports as well. Now we can just go back to the model and hit OK. We just need to, you can rename it, or we can just click on auto rename, and the truss will get generated in our model. It will be just a few seconds, and you can continue with the next envelopes. As I mentioned before, we need to start from the jacks. So we need to design the jacks in the model and then the ridge. And then we can continue with the other side of the roof. And the last thing would be the hip truss. We also have access to Truss Manager, where we can have all the envelopes and trusses that we have in the model. We can check which one has been created, which one has been analyzed, if there are supports for other trusses, and all the reports that we have created for this model. You can select them from here and create at one point, or you can analyze and create reports, and you can also edit the selected trusses. So that was it, everyone, and thank you so much. Let's get back to Tanya.
Awesome. Thank you, Paranaz. So we'd like to open the floor to all of you. If you'd like to pose a question live, please do so by raising your hand now. You can do that by clicking on the hand icon in the control panel. Just please make sure that your audio is working correctly. And just while we wait for any questions to come through, I'd just like to remind everyone that the recording of the presentation will be sent through tomorrow. As always, please feel free to share the recording with any colleagues. As well as if you're looking for the recording a little earlier, you can typically find it at the end of the day today across our social media channels. So I'll just give it another couple of seconds, see if anything comes through. All right, well, that looks like it's a wrap for today. If there are any questions after we have closed the session, please feel free to get in touch with us. Our contact details will be provided along with the recording. As well as if you'd like to set up a one-on-one demonstration, we'd be happy to get that set up for you. All right, we'll now be ending the webinar. I just want to say a big thank you to Paranaz and also thank you to everyone who tuned in today. Have a great day, everyone.